Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? So, how is everybody doing? And, I want to talk to you a little bit, just kind of give you my journey on how I became a photographer and how I got into HDR and some of the programs I use and some different stuff like that. I thought it's worth taking some time and just kind of reflecting and kind of bringing people up to speed that would watch the channel and stuff like that. Um, Photography's always been a way that I deal with other things. Photography's kind of a safe place to say that. I've always been kind of, when I'm stressed out, I can grab my camera, I can go out and just relax, or I can grab a drone. But drones are a bit of a pain because people are kind of touchy about drones. But so that's kind of my story. I actually started in photography when I was really young. I was in 4-H. My mother had me in 4-H, helped me deal with some other things, and so and it was photography that I kind of did, and I was pretty good. Went to the state fair almost every year. I sent something to the state fair. Um, it was, yeah. I mean, I've always done quite good, um, and won purple ribbons every year at the state fair. Was always considered one of the top pitchers in the competition. And I was using a Kodak film camera, an SLR, but film, Kodak something rather back. I mean, we're talking. This is like early 90s. And then I just quit doing photography. Went through a lot of stuff that I'd rather not get into, and so fast forward to about 2014, 2015, somewhere in that ballpark. Um, I picked up a camera again. Okay, about 10 years ago or so, I picked up a camera again. And I was living in the Philippines at the time. I believe the first camera I got was a Nikon D3000. Old camera. It's one of the first DSLRs. You can't do a lot with it. It's got like 10 megapixels of that. Doesn't have video, doesn't do bracketing, doesn't do a whole lot of things. But I had it, and that's where I started. Okay. With a kit lens, 18 to 55, 3.5 to 5.6, I think. It's whatever the kit lens is for Nikon. Okay. And that's where I started. Then I got a Nikon D3100, which was a huge step up from the 3000, and used it for a little bit. Then I got a Nikon D3200 shortly after that, and used it for about 6 months. I actually sold it to a friend of mine that was living in my hometown. I was in the Philippines, shipped it to him, and he still uses that lens, that camera today, and loves it. Absolutely loves that camera. Okay. And so that's what I used. And then I went up to the D7000. And it's just a phenomenal camera. Probably the best camera bang for buck you can get is the Nikon D7000. I want to say a 17 to 50 2.8 Sigma lens. Used it, took some of my best pictures were taken with that D7000. Got a D7100. It got stolen in the Philippines. And a D800 that got stolen in the Philippines. A lot of cameras get stolen in the Philippines. That's kind of the moral of that story. And then when I came back to the U.S., I was using a lot of I had a bunch of Sonys too. I bought an NEX7, an NEX6, a Sony NEX5T. Used it for a bit. Used And then when I came back to the States, I got a Sony A5000, and that's an awesome camera. I had an A5100 about a year ago. Got a D7200, another D7100 to replace the one that was stolen. Got Sigma. I had a Sigma 10 to 20. Great lens. Love that lens. I had a 28 to 70, a 2.8, the original. Great lens. And then I had an 80 to 200 f2.8. And a couple other lenses. I don't remember. 50. I had a 50 millimeter. And I think an 85. Okay. And so that's kind of where I've been. And then about 6 months ago, my camera bag got stolen. Okay. Lost everything. Now I have another D800. I have a Sigma, what is that? 15 to 30? Yeah, 15 to 30 f2.8. Amazing lens. Actually, it's on a tripod right behind me. I got the a newer tripod with the center column and the whole thing. So that's kind of my journey, okay, per se. And for me, why photography? And it's because it helps me just disengage with stress. I could just go out. If I'm having a hard day, I can just go out and I can shoot and just enjoy the day and forget all the trouble I have in whatever area. It's just me and my camera. Cameras don't talk back most of the time. They may not work right, but they don't back talk. And so that was kind of my process and how I got into the whole thing of photography. And it was really relaxing. It had helped me de-stress. There was a lot of things that photography did for me. It's improved my mental health. It's improved my emotional health. It's improved almost every area of my life. I am better today because of photography than I would be without it. And that is really kind of the story. I went through a season several years ago that was really, really rough. And photography was one of the things that helped me through that season. And as I went through and I was struggling and this and that, I could go out and just take pictures. In fact, I've sold prints from the pictures I've taken during that really, really rough season. There were pictures that people put on their walls, people have put in their offices that were taken just me trying to cope with stress and the pain of what was going on within. It amazes me how people, when people put that on a wall, because they don't know the story. They don't know what was going on when I got that picture. All they know is that that's an amazing picture. I look at it and go, and I bring back the memories of, I took that picture because I was out in the middle of the woods crying out for pain to leave. But they don't see that. And that's cool. They probably wouldn't care. All they care is about they got a cool image for their doctor's office. Okay. And so that's kind of where things kind of gone. And that was kind of how I got into photography. I'm not saying that everybody gets into photography that way, but that is definitely what was my journey. And it was a learning curve. It really was, because when I was a kid and I took pictures, I used mainly Kodak film cameras, SLRs, and then when I jumped back into it, everything had went digital, and every digital camera is different. Even within Nikon, a Nikon I'll give you an example. A D7000 is very different than a D7100. Okay, 7200, 7100 were very similar, but the 7000 to the 7100 were extremely different. The layouts were different. Everything was completely different. In fact, hold on. Let me just show you. Okay. Now, even when you jump over to the 800, if you look at the 810 or the 850, it's very different than the 800. The layouts are different. Okay. Different buttons. This even has some differences in it. And when you say you jump from like the D7200 up to the 800, you go full frame. Okay, these buttons here don't exist. The bracket is a little bracket you push here. Now you got to go over here and you got your ISO. You got a quick release to the ISO. You can easily change the white balance on these. You can't do that on a D7200. It's a whole different layout. And then when you switch brands, it's a whole different layout. Sony and Canon and Nikon have very little in common. So that's kind of the reality. And and even I'll give you another example. Lenses. Tamron, which this is a Tamron 15 to 30 f2.8. They have the range, okay, up here, and you focus ring is here. Okay, that is completely backwards to what a Nikon lens would do. Okay, so when you go with Nikon, you got to remember, hey, this is different than the Tamron. So you learn stuff like that and it was a huge learning curve going from film to 20 years later picking up a DSLR. A lot of the information, a lot of composition, stuff like that remains the same. But that was definitely a jump, a huge jump. Okay. And, the technology had greatly improved. Like I said, my first camera, I'm wanting to say, in fact, I'm going to look it up. I believe it was 10. Okay. But I'm going to look up real quick and we're going to see. I'm just curious. I'm wanting to say it was 10, but we'll see. 10.2. So yeah, I mean that's, and this is 36.3. Okay. I'm wanting to get the D850. The D850 is 45 something. Okay. So huge jump, completely huge jump. I mean, that's 4 times what that D3000 does. And that D3000 is a DX camera. It's a crop, and this is full frame. Okay. And I mean, that was a jump. Going full frame is a jump because you're getting about 1.5 times more than you would when you're shooting with a DX camera. All this played into changes that I had to adapt to. Okay. And, lenses, different lenses. And I mean, the other thing I had to learn is photography is expensive. I'll give you an example. This body is about $1,000 body. This lens I got for 600 and some. Okay. I mean, tripod is $150 and it's a cheap one. It's a newer. This stuff gets stupid expensive. Okay. That's just another thing that you learn when you learn photography. So all of that kind of played into where I was going, what I was doing, and that sort of thing. And people kind of, some people were very encouraging, some people weren't. But that's okay. Now, what type of software? I use Photoshop, I use Lightroom, I use Aurora. I love Aurora. We'll get into that in a minute. And I use Luminar. Okay. And of course, I promote Luminar. But so kind of how did I get into the niche of photography? Because a lot of people, they jump into weddings and they jump into portraits and they go into corporative shoots and because that's where the quote unquote money is. For a wedding, you can make $3,000 in a day. You won't. You'll make closer to $500. But a $500 shoot is not bad money. It's really not. Okay. Because if you do that, let's say, let me just pull up some math. Let's say you're making $750 a shoot. Okay. And I think you could do probably realistically about 30 weddings a year. That's $22,000. Over $22,000. Okay. That's not bad for shooting on weekends. That's all you're doing is shooting on weekends. Oh yeah, you got to do a lot of stuff leading up to that. But there's people that have regular jobs, working at Walmart or whatever, and then they shoot their weddings on the weekends, and they're making $22,000 a year extra. Okay, obviously that's not all money because you got to buy new lenses, and you got to buy this and that and lighting, and okay, so you're not really making $22,000, but you're eventually going to be making good money. And I'm just wondering. I'm gonna look up real quick who the highest paid wedding photographers get paid. Okay, I'm just curious now that I'm having this conversation. I'm just curious if there's anything out there that kind of says what they make. Who is the most expensive photographer? Let's see what this says. Okay. Whoever this guy is, I can't pronounce his name. He makes $18,000 a wedding, and he shoots 30 weddings a year. So let's gross that real quick. I'm just curious. So he's making $500,000 doing weddings on the weekends. Okay. And again, that's not all profit, but that's insane. Okay. So there's a lot of people that kind of do that now, but I don't do wedding photography. I'm not against wedding photography. I think it's cool. I think a lot of people make money. If that's what you're good at and that's what you love doing, go and do it. Phenomenal. Go and do it, please. Somebody needs to do weddings. You want to do portraits, making $300-$400 a pop. Go and do it. You can shoot 3-4 portraits a day at $300 or whatever. Say you can shoot 4 a day. Some people can. That's $1,200 a day. Go and do it. Cool. I love I'm very serious about that. I'm all for anybody, and I want to encourage anybody that wants to go do anything. But I'm not a portrait guy. Okay, I'm not a wedding guy. I'm a landscape guy. Okay, landscape guys don't make the money that the wedding photographers do, and that's okay. It really is okay. Okay, and I specialize, and as you can see from the name of the channel, is what's called HDR photography. Now, HDR photography is really cool. You take 3 shots or more. You have your base shot. You have one that's dark, one that's light. Okay, and quick explanation. How do you get that? What you do is you go to bracket, you click bracket, and you dial it in to -2 and +2. And then what you do is you go to continuous, like here on mine. You would go over to what is called CH, or continuous high. And so that way, in fact, I'll show you real quick. That way, when I go and I just hold down the shutter and it fires off however many shots I have it set for. I think I have it set for 9, which is like overkill. Okay, now the other thing you need to do, well, obviously you got to be careful, because if you shoot it that way, because you're going to get camera shake. How you do that is you get a trigger. Newer cameras, not this one, but newer cameras. In fact, my D7200 had this. I never could get it to work right. That bridge sucks. Okay, but you can do it remotely. Okay, and I think I did get it to do remotely. What I did is I had a cable, and I had my phone's over there, and I had an app on my phone, DSLR controller or something like that, DSLR something, and I did that remotely. Okay, that was super easy, and that avoided the shake. Okay, so you have so that's kind of how I got into it with the HDR, and I got into all the different other stuff, and got into landscape, doing a lot of cityscapes. Cityscapes are cool. Okay, let me tell you about cityscapes. Cityscapes are cool because you get all the night lights and the buildings and the architect of the city. Okay, and they are just cool. Landscapes are fun too. But landscapes, you get half the time got to drive 3 hours, hike 2 hours, wait till a Pacific time of the day, and hope you get the shot. Cityscapes are usually right down the street, and there's enough action. It's obviously best to shoot at golden hour. As the street lights come on and the natural light comes down, that's the best time. But you can shoot about any time in the city. You can't do that shooting out in landscapes. So that was, I enjoy landscape photography. I love HDR photography. But, one of the challenges you have is, how do you monetize? How do you make a business out of it? And you go, well, you sell prints, don't you? Yeah, I do. But prints aren't really a business. It is, but it is. Unless you're like the guy that sells, like Peter Lick. And I have nothing against Peter Lick. But Peter Lick sold his prints. It's some stupid money. Some stupid, it's like $7 million. Okay. I'm going to look for what he sells. Now, there is questions on whether he 6.5 million. Okay, there is questions if it really was a sell or if he bought his own picture for 6 million and then said that he sold it. No one knows. Okay, and that'd be an expensive stunt. But that's neither here nor there. So what you do is you begin to have these challenges of how do you make money, because you can't really rely upon prints unless you're selling them every day. Okay, so you need some sort of residual income, and that's not. You can have that with weddings, you can have that with portraits, you can have that with corporative shoots, and you can have that with commercial photography, but it's hard to have it with landscape. And that's been kind of my challenge, and that's kind of taken this from my passion to what people love to see, blah, 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 to business, to making money. to make that $6.5 million on one picture. Okay. And that's been the huge problem. That's been the huge thing that I've been dealing with. And so that's kind of the other side of the process of where I am and kind of what we're born. And that's actually kind of what I'm trying to do with this channel and teaching education, because education is residual income. People will always be trying to learn. And with that comes all kinds of revenue. And so that's kind of why I started doing this channel. It's kind of as a business, okay, and operating things from a business perspective. Okay, it's to teach, to learn. I want people to learn, but it's also helps me financially. So that was kind of the flip side of why I jumped into doing the whole YouTube thing. Because let's face it, YouTube is drama. There are trolls and many trolls on YouTube. I used to have a YouTube channel, was quite successful. But I didn't have a troll. I had an army of trolls. I had, at one time, I could count by name 60 trolls. Okay? And hey, trolls help you, whether you like it or not, because they'll watch every video. They'll watch it all the way through to see if they can find something to hate you on. But but they're still watching it. They're still giving you watch time. They're still giving you views, and they're still helping you promote. And they will promote your video to other trolls that watch it, that help your watch time. Okay, so but at the end of the day, you deal with that. Okay. But and that's why a lot of people are afraid of YouTube, is because of how toxic it is. But it is residual income. It is income that you can trust to have day in, day out. I can get up in the morning, and I used to do this a lot. Get up in the morning, the very first thing I would do is check my analytics and say, hey, I've had this many views and I've made this much revenue. And then I can look at affiliate links and this and that. And while I was sleeping, I was making money. Okay. And that's how is. Hold on. There we go. And that is how you make money. And as a landscape photographer, because like I said, you just can't really rely upon prints. Yeah, you can do like the presets and the this and the that, but you got to really know marketing if you're going to make it. So you just have to relax, and you just have to say, hey, that's not the model. Prints are not the model. I love to do prints. Prints are awesome, but I need a different model. And that's what YouTube is a different model. That's why many photographers are on YouTube. Now, the problem with that is you have to raise above the crowd, and the crowd is very thick. There are hundreds of photographers on YouTube trying to make a buck, and trying to make something out of that, so you have that challenge. Okay. And the big challenge with YouTube, once you get away from the pack, you will do quite well in photography. There's a photographer out there, it's Jared Poland, Frodo's Photo. I don't tend to always agree with him, and I think he's obnoxious, but he's put out there, he's making 12 grand from YouTube itself, not counting all of his stuff. Just from AdSense, he's making 12 grand a month. Okay. So once you get away from the pack, and once you are able to distinguish yourself from everyone else, there is great money in YouTube, but it takes a while to get there. And getting away from that pack is very hard. And that's kind of where I am right now, is I'm just kind of stuck at the back of this huge pack of photography YouTubers and trying to get through all that and to rise above that and start to make the cash. But I know once it starts raining, it will pour. And that's kind of the challenge of where I am right now in this process of building a photography business online. And so there's that. And then but the good thing about all that is I know once it does happen, it's going to be very profitable. It's just a matter of It's just a matter of doing it. And and like I said, once it gets started, it will happen. And I'm in a niche that is kind of a sub niche. I'm not just in landscape photography. I'm in HDR, which HDR a lot of photographers don't like. It's not real photography, whatever. But there's still a lot of people that like to do it. So that's a whole different niche. And so that's kind of where everything is. Now I'll talk to you a little bit about kind of my thoughts, I guess, on Photoshop, Lightroom, Aurora, Luminar. I've used Photomatics. So just kind of give you some of my thought process on all this. Photoshop. I love Photoshop. $10 a month. Pay it. It's worth it. Don't go Pirate Bay. Just pay the $10. I pay $20 a month, and I get all the Adobe programs. Let me make sure that I'll tell you what I get for it. It's usually $52, but I get it for $19.99. And I get, let me see what all is included here. Okay. Polish any project and make your vision a reality with student pricing on the Creative Cloud All Apps plan, which gives you 20 plus cutting edge creative tools for desktop, mobile, and web, plus 100 gigs of cloud storage. Okay, and I haven't even used cloud storage yet, so we'll see how that works. For the photo side, I have Photoshop, Lightroom, Photoshop Express, that's for phones. I don't even have it on my phone yet. And Photoshop Camera, which I probably should use. Okay. And then, of course, I got Premiere Pro and Rush and After Effects and some of that. And I even have Spark, which I haven't used. But so that's kind of that. And I guess I have with that, I have 100 gigs of cloud storage. I haven't even begun to use. Okay. So that's kind of what that is. And so pay the price. Okay, just do it. It's $20. I mean, well, it's not even that. It's $10 if you just want Photoshop and Lightroom. So I like Photoshop. And ever so often, I would say every, couple months, they do a massive upgrade. Like right now, they're doing the super resolution, which I just love. That helps. They finally added sky replacement. Thank God. That was doing a sky replacement was a pain back in the day. Now it's pretty simple, and it actually works pretty freaking well. Okay, so some of that stuff's been added. The cutting out of a subject is super easy now. It didn't used to be, but it is now. Photoshop is a lifesaver, and I firmly believe If it can't be done in Photoshop, it just can't be done. Okay. Photoshop's just that amazing of a program. It's not photographer friendly though. It is a huge learning curve. Okay. So what about Lightroom? Lightroom is pretty cool too. Lightroom is one of those things where it's all sliders and you draw circles around things, and it makes life super simple. Okay, and I mean super simple. And so you have, how's that work, and you enjoy that. Okay, so if you pay the $10 a month, you get Lightroom. Lightroom is absolutely amazing. Okay, I use Lightroom. I've used it for 10 years. So I would highly recommend using Lightroom. Now, let me get into the other programs that I use. I use Aurora. Aurora was actually developed by Trey Raycliffe and a company. And what they did is they built an HDR program that makes life super simple to do HDR photography. Okay, it's all sliders. It's a lot of this. It's all based on artificial intelligence, and it reads the image and it figures out what needs to be done. So what would take normally 10 steps in Photoshop or Lightroom to do is done in one step using Aurora. Probably the best program for HDR photography out there. I highly recommend it. And so that's kind of where that is. And then Luminar, which is also made by the same company, same similar thing. Let me add something about Aurora real quick, since I've kind of been having this conversation. Is one thing I really wish they would improve, and one thing I've asked them to improve on, is I really wish we could do sky replacement in Aurora instead of having to go to Photoshop or having to go to Luminar. Now, let's talk about Luminar AI. It's the new program. Everybody's up in arms about it. Everybody's complaining about it. Everybody's upset because they had to buy it, and they thought they should get it for free. Okay, I'll leave that alone. And it's got some bugs. Okay, what program out there doesn't have bugs? Okay, so you have that happen. I love Aurora AI. I just absolutely love it. I think it's a great program. I think people need to quit complaining. It works well. It edits. It takes what would take an hour, I can do in about 5 minutes with it. The sky replacement works good. It is a little touchy. It does bleed over. Photoshop has a better sky replacement now, but we have to understand that Adobe didn't give it to us until Luminar was kicking all the business, but everybody was moving over to it because of the sky replacement. So that's something you have to understand. That's something you have to cope with. The other thing is Luminar is a creative app. You can completely change the atmosphere of an image quickly with Luminar. You can do it with Photoshop, but it's going to take a long time. You can do it with Lightroom, but it's going to take a while. Luminar does it all for you. It recognizes the image, and it even has some presets that all you have to do is click them, and they pop up. You can't do that with a lot of other apps. So I personally use Luminar far more than I use Photoshop, far more than I use Lightroom. The one thing you can't do with it, it's a Lightroom alternative, but some of the stuff you can do with Photoshop, like type and stuff like that, you can't do with it. There's several things you can't do with Luminar or with Aurora, but what it does do, it does very well. And a lot of people are too focused in on what this program does or that program doesn't do. Find out what the program does do well, use it for what it does well, and what it doesn't do well, find another program that does that. That's what you have to do, and that's really kind of your only options out there. And so I just kind of wanted to spell that and say, hey, it may not be perfect, but it does do well. And I use those programs professionally. I edit with my images with. Very rarely do I go into Photoshop to do photo editing. I do graphic design in it. I do, stuff related for YouTube, stuff related for the website in Photoshop. But I don't typically use it to do editing of images. Lightroom I can, and I'll go into Luminar almost. In fact, I start there most of the time. Luminar's got a couple issues. I wish it was easier to import images. Okay, and they had more of a better catalog system. Lightroom does a phenomenal job at importing, puts it all cataloged by dates and this and that, and you can keyword and all that. You can't do that with Luminar. I do wish it had a better import system, but and the other thing I wish is you could add your own skies into their system. You can always put your own sky in there, but what you have to do in order to use their own sky is you have to load it every time you use it. I wish that they would develop it where, hey, I'm not going to use your 3 blue skies, but I want to add 3 blue skies that I would use to replace those. Can I put those in there? I wish they would do that. I really do, because it makes life a lot easier for me and for a lot of other photographers. But that's not the end of the world. Let's get honest. So there's that issue. The other cool thing is you can literally add things in the background very quickly. I was messing around with a friend of mine the other day, and I took a picture of where we were, and then I put the Rocky Mountains behind it. It took me about a half a second, a couple seconds, to put the Rocky Mountains behind where we were, and she said she didn't remember the Rocky Mountains there. I wonder why. So that's kind of where we are, and that's the programs I use. The other thing I want to add is kind of where I'm going in photography. Obviously, education is the next step. And of course, I want to continue to sell prints. But prints, while you can get some good money. I sold a print the other day for $500. Okay, if I could sell a print for $500 every day, I would be good to go. Well, you can't do that. But I will continue to do that. Get into photography education, get into all the residual stuff, and grow it from a business perspective and make this into my livelihood more than it really is at this point. And so that's a lot of how do you move from there to there. And, because one of the things I really don't want to do is this. A little bit of my background. I've traveled all over the world. I've lived in the Philippines. I've lived in Fiji. I've lived in Samoa. I've been to Tibet. I've been to Nepal, India, Pakistan, all over Israel a couple times. Okay, I've been all over the place. What I want to do is get to a point where I'm not traveling like I used to. Okay, I would rather just stay here in Kansas City, travel around the country a little bit, but not where I have to be gone 6, 8 weeks doing photography, because that just doesn't work. As much as I would like to see it work, it just doesn't work. So that's one of the things that I'm struggling with, is how to move to where I want to be, and what it looks like building the platform, the instruments to make that happen it's a project, it's a thought, and it doesn't always come. It isn't always easy, and it's going to take a lot of work. But that's kind of where things are, and that's kind of where I'm moving. And so, some people say, well, Kansas City's not a place to build a photography business. It actually is, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people would say it's not, but Kansas City is the city of, we are an art city. We are only Rome has more fountains than Kansas City. And you say, well, what's that got to do with it? Fountains are an artwork, okay? Walt Disney is from Kansas City. He went to high school here. He started his first business here on 31st Street, okay? Laugh-O-Gram, I think, was the name of it. He learned to draw at the Kansas City Art Institute. That's still one of the nation's best art schools, okay? We are an art community. With that said, that brings lots of competition, and lots of very good competition, which can be a challenge if you want to, make it in photography, especially commercial. Okay, but Kansas City is actually a good place to have a photography business. Yes, I know people think you should be in Philadelphia or New York or do things in California, but or Hong Kong, that's a big one. A lot of photographers are based in Hong Kong, which is one of my favorite cities. However, I would disagree that Kansas City is not a good place to build a photography business. And I'm building a different type of business. I'm not doing the weddings. I'm not doing the portraits. I'm not doing the whatever. I'm doing online education. The only thing that Kansas City is really critical for is for when I go out to do a shoot, getting images and stuff like that. If I want to do landscapes, what type of landscapes can I use in? So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where things are. And so Kansas, but we have amazing fountains. We have the Crown Center. We have, we have a lot of nature parks in Kansas City. It's crazy how many we have. We have some amazing state parks around here. The Mark Twain National Forest is just a few hours from here. Okay, we can go to the Ozarks in about 3 hours. So all of that plays into, a place to base. The other thing, the reason it's good to base, it's home. I was raised here, so I know it. And so that's another factor. The downside is, well, our airport sucks. Okay. And we really don't like Amtrak here, even though I am a huge supporter of the Amtrak system. And I love to kick the trains, but so traveling out of here is a bit of a pain, but there's a lot of really cool places to do photography within a couple hours of here. I mean, you're within, like I said, within an hour, couple hours of the Ozarks. You're in with a couple hours of, you can get to St. Louis, and 4 hours. You can, I mean, one of the best zoos in the country is Henry Dorley up in Omaha. Great zoo. Kansas City, in fact, has a great zoo. It didn't used to. It used to really suck, but it's a great zoo now. They've spent a lot of money, improved that, and I mean, within 4 hours of here, you have a lot of really cool places, a lot of just hole in the wall, hidden places that you can get some cool images from, and you meet some great people in these small towns, and you wouldn't get that hospitality in New York City. And let's get honest, New York is over photographer. Okay. Every photographer has done pictures in New York, to the point that people are tired of seeing pictures from New York. Same thing with LA. Okay. There is cities that need photography besides New York and LA. Okay. And Hawaii you'll never get all the pictures from Hawaii. There's just so much there. But there's been a lot of work done in Hawaii. The Midwest, not so much. And what little has been done in the Midwest is predominantly done in Dallas. And Dallas is not really the Midwest. Dallas is, it's Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. That's a whole different world. So, there's so much culture in the Midwest, so much just people and landscapes and cityscapes and just a story to tell that you couldn't tell that story. You wouldn't have that story if you lived in San Francisco or Chicago or, like I said, New York or LA or, or Seattle. That's really a whole, it's a different niche, it's a different story, it's a different narrative that you wouldn't have in most places. And I believe that is important, that people hear that and flow in that and understand that it is a different niche. It is a different, and I believe that a lot of people want to hear something different than New York and LA and Dallas, where a lot of photographers just kind of hang out. And especially from a landscape perspective, because to be honest with you, most of the very well-known, most of the big photographers in the YouTube space aren't doing a lot of landscapes. You're not going to see Jared Polin doing a lot of landscapes. He just doesn't do it. In fact, he don't do a lot of photography anymore. All he does is talk about cameras. I don't see him actually out doing much shooting, but he can. Matt Granger's left the country. Okay. You don't see a lot of the guy down in Dallas, art of photography. You don't see him doing much landscapes. You don't see the others doing mostly landscapes. So this is a very different niche. And I think that it's I think it's something that's definitely people want. And I think the Midwest is a great place to do it. It's also good for me. At the end of the day, I had to make the decision on what's best for me and what would work for business. I could move to California. In fact, I was considering moving to Florida. Yet I stayed here. And one of the reasons that I believe that is good is I know the area. I know where the state parks are. I know where all the cool places that people don't know about. Okay. I know, people, the history and the the national preservations and you don't get that. I wouldn't have that if I were to move to Orlando. I would have to figure out where all that stuff is and take pictures of the same beach that 15 other photographers cooked that morning. And people are tired of seeing the beaches. People are tired of seeing, I could cook a portrait of an alligator. Okay. And though those are played out, especially beach pictures. And, a lot of that stuff in Florida is played out. New York and LA and all that's played out. The Midwest is not. People don't realize how much amazing history we have in the Midwest. So that played into it. That definitely played into it in a big way. And also, even though our airport does suck, and they're improving it, by the way, I can be in LA in an hour and a half. I can be in New York in 2 hours. We did have flights nonstop to Iceland. They've kind of figured out that's not marketable. So you have all of that as well. Okay. And, the stories and all of that. So you just kind of relax and enjoy everything. And again, and here's the thing. If you go, well, Kansas City doesn't work. What if it doesn't work? Well, if it doesn't work, I move to LA. If it doesn't work, I go to New York. Probably not going to. I believe that it will be successful. I believe that doing work here in the Midwest is going to work. It is a lot of driving. The Midwest is very, very spread out. You say there's a really cool place. In fact, I can think of right now. It's in the Boot Hill of Missouri. That's a 7-hour drive. But, it's a nice drive. Okay. Even say you go to the 12 Tears birthplace, which is in Cleveland, Tennessee. I used to live there. It's a long drive, but it's a beautiful drive, by the way. And you get a lot of cool images along the way that you wouldn't think of. You're driving down the road and you go, oh, that's a really cool shot. And the light's pretty good. So, and if the light's not the greatest, well, it's good enough that I can alter it once I get it into editing. And so you do all of that, and you just learn that the city is that you learn to be thankful for a place like Kansas City, and to develop and you because of the Art Institute, you may be able to take a day class taught by one of the nation's best photographers that you wouldn't have if you lived in some of these other places. So, there's a lot of things that people just don't think about. And you grow. And that's how you really grow. Anyways, I've kind of rambled for almost an hour. This is all over the place, by the way. But I just kind of wanted to get some stuff out there and kind of who I am, what I'm doing, what I use, where I'm going, and everything, and just kind of give some random thoughts on why about photography and where things are going, why I would be in Kansas City when a lot of people would say you shouldn't go to Kansas City, you should be there, should be there. The other thing I like about Kansas City before I go is Google Fiber. Okay, you get affordable internet that you can use. In some cities, that would not be the case, aka Manila. But so we get that here. Anyways, I guess that's all I got. Make sure you get out and do some shooting. And I would love to hear I hope this helped people understand kind of where things are, where things are going, why it's important, and all of that. So I guess that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. Like I said, I've almost been on here an hour running my mouth. But I really do hope this helps someone get out and shoot, edit your images, do the best you can, and continue to watch the channel. I'll talk to you later. I'm out of here. Bye.